to AI Revolution Digest, where businesses get smarter. I'm Jesslyn.
And I'm Elias. Together, we show you how AI drives real results.
And because the future isn't waiting, let's dive right in. How does AI revolutionize marketing strategies? That is the question for today's episode. And now let's welcome our guest speaker for today, Professor Malshe. Professor, thank you for being here. Can you tell our listeners who are you and what do you do?
Thanks, Jocelyn Elias. My name is Ashwin Malshe. I'm an associate professor of marketing at the University of Texas at San Antonio. And my research areas primarily are in estimating the impact of marketing strategy in the financial markets. And to quantify marketing strategy, I use machine learning. And these days, I'm also using generative AI.
Okay, thank you, Professor. So I guess our first question would be AI can provide forecasts based on historical data, but how accurate are long-term predictions when markets and consumer behaviors evolve rapidly?
Uh, so first of all, I'll just clarify something. So when we talk about AI, we will discuss the role of traditional machine learning models using deep learning, for instance, and then we will talk about say generative AI like ChatGPT or Claude.ai and so on. Uh, as far as long-term predictions are concerned, generally you will see that the models are not that great. This is not only true for machine learning models, but also for traditional time series or statistical models. Uh, but the question, of course, is what is exactly a long term? So if we are talking about 3 years, 5 years, that is a really long term, and I believe that most of the models will fail to predict anything accurately because so many things are changing randomly and they may have a lot of large impacts on the outcomes. On the other hand, if you're for a lot of marketers, short long term could be maybe a quarter. That could be a long term for some of the marketers that are in a product space that evolves very quickly. So for these type of models or situations, the model predictions can be really really good, and there are even the time series models now embedded with the deep learning methodologies that do pretty well out of sample and over a period of, let's say, a few weeks to few months. uh, One thing to note though is that the longer you want to predict, more uncertain is your forecast. So I would say that we currently have a pretty good idea about consumer mindset evolution, their behavior evolution, and so on. And if you want to learn more about that type of research, I would strongly advise you to look into Pete Fader, a professor in Wharton, and Dan McCarthy, who also did PhD from Wharton, but now he is a professor in University of Maryland. And their research is focused on how to capture that evolution of customer behavior and switching and so on, and then capture the value of that customer in terms of customer lifetime value.
Thank you very much, Professor. Our second question, we're wondering, there's a growing concern that the large technology firm dominates AI innovation, potentially stifling competition. How should antitrust law evolve to ensure fair competition in the rapidly advancing AI sector while promoting healthy innovation?
So first of all, yes, I mean that observation is spot on, and you will see that we are these days are not talking about funding of few hundred millions. We are now talking about billions of dollars of funding going to some of the AI startups. For instance, just 2 days back, Amazon.com invested about $4 billion into Anthropic, who owns Claude.ai, and the this kind of investment is possible only if you are a really really large company. So currently, if you see the landscape, it is Microsoft, then it is Google and Amazon and Meta. These are the ones at the forefront, and companies like Apple rely on some of these companies like OpenAI. Although Apple has this own models, but they are not as sophisticated as the models like Chat GPT. So you will see that these like four companies currently controlling a lot of the software, or sorry, investment part of the AI. And then there is a lot of investments in chip manufacturing. And you see that the market leader there is NVIDIA, with a market cap of more than $3 trillion now. So it's an insanely lopsided sort of like a market right now. And so what we see is that the regulation at this point is unfortunately not adequate to handle any of this, because the regulators are, it takes time for them to understand the situation and then think about the consequences of these things. So I don't see it, any like a major attempt at this point to stop companies from concentrating more and more power. And it will also become difficult. And by the way, I'm talking more from the US point of view. So you are going to see this becoming more and more difficult now, given that the new administration, the incoming Trump administration, might be actually more, more amenable to less regulation. And so it might become difficult. Also remember that Elon Musk, who is affiliated with this administration, also has an AI company called as X.AI, and there is again a strong incentive for him to make sure that there is not a lot of regulation that is put on these companies. On the other hand, you would see that regulators are trying to force companies to divest from some of these like large AI investments. And if for example, if let's say right now, the Google has been asked to sort of split, and the government is contemplating whether to ask them to spin off Chrome browser separately from Google. So they might be able to use the existing antitrust laws to force companies to separate their AI operations from their core business, saying that, hey, you're getting the data from one arm of your business, like Google collects all the data on us, and then also uses that data to train their AI models, and then get a monopoly or a very, very strong position in that AI market, right? So if this is combined, then no other companies can compete with them. So I think that current laws are pretty much inadequate, and so it will take some time to figure out what would be the best way to handle that. And maybe they might come up with a regulation that if you are a company that collects a lot of data, like Meta collects a lot of data from Instagram, WhatsApp, and Facebook, then in that case they cannot also have a company that, or arm of the company that also gets into AI development.
Thank you, Professor. So I just want to go back to most of our listeners are business school students. In school, we're often told, okay, do this research, collect all this data. We have huge numbers we need to crush every day. Then the professor would say, okay, thank you. Now go in front and have your final presentation. Tell us what you found. And it's very difficult for us to tell data or numbers, because the moment we say numbers or percentage, people just want to fall asleep. So is there any tips that you can share with us, and how do we do storytelling with data and make it engaging for our audience?
That's a great question. And I teach data visualization and communication, and part of that course is focused on data storytelling. So I teach this in the MS in Data Analytics program in our university, and it's a very technical program. Students are coding most of the time, or doing machine learning. So they a lot of times overlook this important aspect that you mentioned, that ultimately you have to convey all these results to somebody who is going to make use of those results in their decision making. And a lot of times students skip that altogether, and then you end up making this presentation where you will have all these technical jargons that nobody understands. Or it is possible that you provide all the details about how you went about collecting the data, cleaning it, and doing the analysis, but so there you're telling the story about the data part, but not exactly what you are supposed to do with that data. So the my suggestion to that is that I would first of all strongly recommend checking out some of these videos online. There's a great just a PowerPoint presentation related video. Is a TEDx talk. It's an old one, and the title of the talk is "How to Avoid Death by PowerPoint." And this is a great starting point. And so you see that how you can engage your audience from through your presentations. But if you want to get into the data storytelling part specifically, again, there are a bunch of videos you can watch on TEDx, on YouTube TEDx. And there is Ben Wellington, who is a data storyteller, by the way, that's his title. And he talks about a lot of these, like his projects, which led to some impact. So the idea behind data storytelling is that you want to start with this basic, so by the way, in a storytelling, there are three elements. So there has to be, a setup. So you have to set up a story, and then you have to come up with a conflict, and then you have to show the resolution. So setup means you have to give some background, provide some context to your audience. Then you pose the question that you are trying to solve here. And this question has to be from the individual perspective, from the managerial perspective, from a business perspective, from a policymaker's perspective. It could be any decision maker. And then you show through your data analysis how you resolve that specific conflict. And that's it. There are only these three elements, and that is the flow. If you manage that flow well, you can tell a good story. And once you focus on that, you can practice that more and more. Now you can bring in a lot of these tools there, like data visualization, and Canva, for example, allows you to create really beautiful presentations. You can learn Tableau. The Tableau public is free. You can learn that and create some really nice data visualizations from that. So there are a number of these tools available. However, you have to keep this at the back of your head, that ultimately you are thinking about this setup, conflict, and the resolution. These are the three steps that you are solving. And at each step, you have to make sure that you are connecting the dots and you are presenting the story well.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay.
Now, I just want to ask one question before Elias is going to jump in. Because in class, we talk about what type of posts would often get a lot of reactions. And the algorithm likes posts that incite anger, posts that make people anxious. So when we have this data, I'm not saying that we're going to go out there and do fear mongering in front of our bosses, but what lesson can we learn from that we can impose in our presentations?
Yeah, so you mean for the social media content, content, right? So yeah, that's a great point. So social media content, that this is a Burger and Milkman paper, I believe, from 2012, that showed that any content that generates anxiety is likely to go viral. So turns out, surprisingly, in their research, anger related content was, so anger inducing content was likely to go viral, because anger generates anxiety and you want to get rid of the anxiety. And so you end up, sharing that item and show it to everybody else so that your anxiety goes down a little bit. So, and you see that in today's world, that can actually be really a bad thing, because every second post you see on social media now is anger inducing. As a business, of course, you do not want to generate posts that generate a lot of this anger, because that can have other negative connotations. People start looking at you later as a company to avoid, because you always share negative stuff. So there's a very important balance to achieve here. I would say that one can look at the other determinants of virality, and one of them that has been talked about quite a lot is creating surprising content that is both sticky, that people remember for a long time. At the same time, although I don't think Burger and Milkman paper emphasize that a lot, but their results in their paper show that surprising content also gets shared quite a lot. So people like to, and part of the reason, by the way, is that you want to see surprising content to make yourself better, feel better, but then you also want to share that so that you start looking cooler to other people, saying, wow, okay, this person shared something really nice. And so that's the reason you'll see that many companies take that approach, try to come up with a spin, but you have to be very careful there. You don't want to have a surprising content that is so bizarre that then people say, okay, if I share this, everybody will start thinking I'm a dork. So you don't want to do that either. So you want to have that balance. So one way to put it is that you want to create something that is unexpected, but to some extent people are expecting it. So it is it's not like completely out of the blue. It has some expectability, but they don't know in which direction it is going exactly, or to what extent it will be surprising, but they know something is coming, right? So you are not taking them completely by surprise.
Well, talking about social media, AI allows for extreme personalization, and there is a risk of consumer fatigue, obviously, from over-targeting. How can marketers strike a balance between personalized engagement and respecting consumer boundaries, particularly when financial returns are at stake?
Yeah, great question. And this is, by the way, is not an easy question to answer. This is so the reason why it is not easy is because marketers ultimately want to make money, and we know that this very specific targeting that companies do actually leads to a high return on investment. There is a very old quote by John Wanamaker, who said that I know 50% of my advertising is waste. The problem is I don't know which 50%. And this hyper targeting solves that problem. So you are not showing irrelevant advertisements to people, and you see that there is some welfare benefit from the for the consumers also. So if as a consumer I'm not getting irrelevant advertisements, I am not I'm a little bit better off. If you ask me personally, I would think so. And the same thing is true for many other people. And so if we however, people start freaking out when they get highly contextualized and highly targeted advertisements, because they think that I'm being monitored, and this software knows my taste better than anybody else. Like maybe even my wife may not know what I really like, and this company knows everything about me. And so people start freaking out, right? And so how do we balance that? So I think some companies end up sort of like diluting that a little bit. Maybe they don't want to target it too much. So there has been controversy. So Facebook at one point used to allow marketers or advertisers to target consumers on like very controversial and specific topics like anti-Semites. So you can, as a brand, you can say, well, I want to target specifically anti-Semite, and you could do that on Facebook, and that was super controversial. And so they started not going that deeper and finer, and then you stay at a little bit more like a course level, so that you're, first of all, it is unethical. Secondly, you're also not making your consumers anxious about the use of the data. But I think that because there are these some societal benefits, and there are these profit benefits, companies have a very strong incentives to keep on doing it. And what also happens is that, let's say a company or a marketer worries about this, about the consequences, and they say, hey, I'm not going to do it. The problem is that their competitors are still going to do it. And this is called in game theory called as a prisoner's dilemma. And so in this case, ideally, if everybody says, hey, we don't want to bother our consumers, and all of us decide not to hyper target, then everybody is better off. However, even one company defects here, in this case, from this agreement, and starts hyper targeting, they are going to get amazing benefits personally. And so they are going to do it. And so you can't convince many other companies from doing it, right? And so you are stuck in that situation, and I believe that's why it is difficult for companies to let go of it. So this is not going to go down. In fact, I've been thinking about a research project about looking at some of these hyper targeting aspects, and I realized that right now we have not seen enough of the targeting the companies can do. So this is going to get worse, if you ask me.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, thank you very much, Professor. So now we're gonna pass to a little game. So it's basically what we do at the end of each of our interviews. So you have 1 minute to answer the as many questions as you can.
Okay.
And it's like really short answer questions, so no worries, and it's really not that serious. Like it's, for example, do you like pizza, or do you prefer pizza over burgers, or do you, yeah, questions like that.
Okay. Great.
So
Okay, Professor, on your mark, we're gonna start, and then just
yes.
tell us when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, which animal would make the worst pet?
Uh, an elephant.
If you could speak any language instantly, what would it be?
Oh, it would be Mandarin.
If you could have a lifetime supply of one snack, what would it be?
For me, it would be I eat these almond cookies, and I eat them quite a lot. So I would like to have a lifetime supply of these.
Do you have a specific brand?
That's good. I buy them in Costco. I never paid attention to the brand.
Okay, maybe that's something we should know as a marketer. Why is that?
Yeah.
So, would you rather be 10 minutes late or 20 minutes earlier?
Oh, 20 minutes earlier, always.
Would you rather have the ability to fly or be invincible?
I would like to fly.
What's
And
your
time's
signature?
up.
Oh, no. Okay. Time's up. Thank you once again, Professor. It's such a pleasure to see you again. Before we go, is there something you want to promote or share to our listeners? Where can they follow you or reach out to you?
Yeah, so I have actually stopped going on Twitter these days. I'm more on Blue Sky. So that would be one place where you can find, just Google me, like search for my name, Ashwin Malshe, and you will find it there. So interestingly, I'm the only Ashwin Malshe out there in the world. So it's pretty
Really?
straightforward. Yeah, I've not come across any other Ashwin Malshe. So on LinkedIn, again, the same thing. Just search me, and I would be happy to connect with you. And I do my own consulting work, and this is the name of my company, 𝐵ERIDGE.ai. And I do mostly consulting related to modeling and helping companies to hone their strategies better.
What's the company's name again?
𝐵ERIDGE.ai, BERIJ
So
AI.
it's a consulting company more for marketing?
It is not for marketing so much. It is I do consulting in any field. So it could be marketing, it could be strategy, but I do the data side of it. So modeling mostly. Modeling, I build predictive models. I would do even apps, develop apps for them to like a dashboard apps and so on. And I work with some consultants who help me with some of these like contacts with the companies, and they generate the data, and I help them in modeling all of that.
Thank you, Professor. And for those of you guys who have a great idea, you want to turn it into app, now you know who to go to. Thank you everyone for listening, and see you in the next episode. Goodbye.